Princess Alari thrust her training blade forward in a flawless arc, the ceremonial staff of her opponent whistling past her shoulder as she pivoted. The grand hall's crystal floors gleamed under the vaulted dome, echoing with the controlled grunts of her sparring partner, Captain Ilera, a veteran of the Border Legions. Alari's frilled crest flared with focus, iridescent scales shimmering as she countered with a sweeping disarm. Textbook form, drilled since childhood. The crowd of counselors and nobles murmured approval, their tail flicks signaling satisfaction with the heir's poise. She stepped back, breathing steady, and bowed. "Protocol satisfied?" Alari asked, her voice carrying the lilting cadence of StoryHFY speech. Chief Minister Talor uncoiled from his seat on the dais, his aged scales dull but his eyes sharp. "Adequately, Herr Alari. Your strategy display earlier impressed the succession scribes, linking fleet maneuvers to trade routes without a single misstep. The dynasty endures." Alari nodded, wiping simulated sweat from her brow ridge. These rituals were rote, a public affirmation of her readiness before the real weight of rule descended, but today carried an undercurrent, the alliance treaty. Her gaze flicked to the sealed doors at the hall's far end, where heralds waited. "Summon the human," Thalor commanded. "The attaché arrives as alliance envoy. Princess, receive him with imperial grace." The massive doors parted with a hydraulic hiss, admitting Julian Reyes. He entered alone, unarmored, clad in a simple black tunic and trousers that marked him as off-world diplomatic standard. Nothing ornate. No entourage. Humans were baseline mammals, pale-skinned and bipedal without crests or tails, their history a patchwork of tribal wars and late stellar expansion. Alari had studied the briefings. Fragile atmosphere needs, but tenacious in voids. This one moved with economical strides, eyes scanning the hall without overwariness. She descended the dais steps, her gown's silver threads catching the light. Protocol demanded she initiate, extend a handclaw, not fully open, to test intent. "Julian Reyes, you honor the Sestari court. I am Alari, heir apparent." He stopped a precise arm's length away, exactly regulation, and mirrored her gesture, palm up, fingers loose. No translator lag. His vocalizer implant hummed faintly. "Princess Alari, the honor is mine. Earth sends regards and alliance commitments. Queen Ilthra." His grip was firm. Warm-blooded skin against her scaled palm, no tremor. Up close, humans looked. Compact, dense muscle under that tunic, perhaps, but his face held steady neutrality, dark eyes meeting hers without challenge. Thalor cleared his throat scales. "The treaty demands more than words. Border sanctions from the Krell Compact loom. Our trade spines fracture without this pact. Marriage seals it. Heir Alari to the human attaché. Public test first to affirm compatibility before engagement rights." Murmurs rippled. Lord Vesh, coiled in the front row, flicked his tail dismissively, his crimson scales gleaming with inherited wealth. "A human? For the throne's bloodline? This dilutes purity when we face raiders." Alari's crest twitched irritation, but she held composure. Vesh's faction had pushed this objection for cycles, eyeing her seat amid the Empire's unrest. "The throne adapts, Lord Vesh. I will lead the treaty negotiations myself. The human serves as ceremonial partner, symbol of unity, nothing more." She turned back to Julian, projecting imperial resolve. Let him sense the lightness. This was politics, not conquest. "Shall we proceed to the reception hall? Protocol awaits." Julian inclined his head. "As you command, Princess." The procession flowed into the adjacent reception chamber, a vast oval ringed by hovering data orbs projecting treaty holograms, star maps laced with sanctioned red lines, nobles clustered, servers gliding with nectar vats. Alari took her central dais, Julian positioned at her right as custom for betrothed envoys. Thalor raised a claw for toasts, but Vesh slithered forward unbidden, cutting the herald's line. "Heir Alari, before nectar flows, address the breach. Humans lack crest oaths, no fealty sworn. Protocol demands rejection." Gasps rippled, tails lashed. A protocol breach, public, damning. Alari's mind raced. Counter with edict, delay? Vesh's play was bold, exploiting the gap to rally traditionalists. Her claws tightened on the dais edge. Before she spoke, Julian shifted, not abruptly, but with the fluid timing of a shadow crossing light. He placed his chalice down exactly as the herald's chime sounded for intercession, the note masking his motion. "If I may, he said, voice even, stepping half a pace forward, precisely into the envoy's neutral zone, not invading Vesh's space. Earth customs omit crests, but oaths bind deeper. I swear fealty here, to Alari's line, the Sestari peace, by my word and service. He extended his palm again, this time over a data orb that Thalor hastily activated, recording the vow in triplicate. The chime faded. Vesh's tail froze mid-lash. Julian's eyes held Vesh's without glare, just calm assessment, then returned to Alari with a subtle nod. Permission sought, granted in her silence. Thalor blinked, scales paling in surprise. Timely, accepted, nectar flows. Alari watched Julian resume position, his posture unchanged, as if diffusing a noble's gambit were casual diplomacy. Composed, unnaturally so for an unblooded attaché. Humans fatigued faster in high grav, briefings said, yet he betrayed no strain from the transit or the breach. Her crest eased. He bought her ground without overstep. The reception swirled on. Toasts clinked. Holograms shifted to green as virtual signatures locked prelibs. Vesh retreated, muttering to allies, but the momentum held. Alari leaned slightly toward Julian during a lull, keeping her tone light. Meet timing. You read our protocols? Studied enough to not embarrass my host, he replied, a faint smile creasing his face. Human tell for amusement. Your court's rhythms are intricate. Intricate means troublesome, she quipped, earning a shared chuckle that drew curious tail flicks from nearby aides. Small bridge, but it warmed the air. As the orbs dimmed for closing rites, Thalor reconvened the council. Objections linger. Vesh's faction claims dilution. Heir? Alari rose, crestfully flared. Duty pressed. Sanctions would starve out her spines. Raiders exploit the chaos. Personal qualms, marrying a soft-skinned outsider, faded against Empire's need. Julian had proven useful already. No bluster. I accept the betrothal publicly. The alliance stands. Let scribes etch it. Cheers mixed with hisses. Vesh stormed out, but Thalor nodded approval. Wise heir. Rights tomorrow. Julian met her gaze sidelong, expression humble. I'll strive to honor it, princess. As the hall emptied, Alari lingered, watching him converse quietly with a scribe, clarifying a treaty clause with patient gestures. Ordinary human. The briefings droned, yet that composure lingered in her thoughts. A quiet anomaly amid the court's whirl. Peace sealed, but at what hidden cost? Thalor approached, voice low. He moves like he's anticipated Vesh's strike. Watch him closely. Alari's tail curled thoughtfully. I intend to. In the quiet aftermath, as servants cleared chalices, she felt the weight shift, not just alliance, but partnership unforeseen. The human at court was no mere symbol, and in the Empire-shadowed webs, symbols rarely stayed inert. Alari's crest feathers quivered as Lord Vesh rose from his seat in the assembly hall, his voice slicing through the murmurs like a ceremonial blade. Highness, this union defies protocol. A human consort, unblooded, unbound by our rights, cannot wear the air's weave without challenge. The broadcast drones hummed overhead, relaying his words to every provincial outpost, and the palace nobles leaned forward, their scales rippling in anticipation. She straightened on the dais, Julian at her side, his human frame steady amid the Sestari sea of iridescent hides and jeweled crests. The vows had bound them moments ago. Simple words exchanged under the ancestral glow orbs, but now the real test ignited. Chief Minister Thalor gripped his staff beside her, hissing low. Demonstrate control, Herr Alari. Bind this alliance before it frays. Alari met Vesh's gaze, her tail coiling with practiced poise. Lord Vesh, the weave honors alliance, not blood alone. Speak your grievance plainly, or yield the floor. Her voice carried the throne's timbre, honed from years of shadowed council chambers, but inside, doubt flickered. Julian was no warrior of legend. His hands bore no scars, his eyes no feral gleam. Yet duty demanded she shield him, and through him, the fragile human pact. Vesh's lips curled, revealing needle teeth. Plainly, he claims no lineage, no fealty beyond duty. Let him declare it himself, lest we question his place at your side. Murmurs swelled. Human delegates in the rear shifted uneasily, their pale faces taut. Julian stepped forward without hesitation, his voice calm, resonant through the translators. Duty binds me, my lord. A protective mission for my people. And now yours. I accept this marriage to safeguard the heir and the empire she will lead. He inclined his head not in submission, but alliance, framing his words like a strategist laying tiles on a game board. Alari caught the undercurrent, not mere diplomacy, but a vow laced with unspoken steel. The assembly hushed, even Vesh blinked, momentarily off balance. Thalor nodded sharply. The human speaks as consort, the union stands. But Vesh sat without grace, his faction's eyes smoldering, seeds of discord already rooting. The procession shifted to the reception vault, crystal walls pulsing with light symphonies as servants cleared chalices and laid air regalia upon the central plinth. Her mother's coronet, woven with security filaments that hummed faintly against tampering. Alari circulated, exchanging ritual grasps with delegates. Julian moved at her elbow, unhurried, sampling a nectar flute with polite curiosity. The broadcasts reached the outer rims intact? He asked softly, eyes scanning the hall. Yes, Unity projected, she replied, forcing a smile for a cluster of provincial lords. But as she turned, Vesh's group lingered near the plinth, one noble's claw brushing the coronet too lingeringly. Julian's hand brushed her arm, a feather-light warning. A moment, he murmured, gliding past without drawing eyes. Alari watched, pulse quickening, as he paused by the plinth under pretense of admiring the weave. His fingers danced over the coronet, swift and precise, like a mechanic tuning an engine mid-flight. No flourish, no alarm. He palmed something small, a sleek device, no larger than a talon, then straightened, slipping it into his sleeve as if adjusting a cuff. Her frills flared involuntarily. Sistari guards trained years to detect such shadows. The filaments should have wailed. Yet Julian resumed his circuit, nodding to a human envoy, utterly composed. She drew him aside into an alcove as the symphony swelled, masking their words. What was that? Tampering, he said flatly, producing the device, a compact disruptor, pulsing with foreign harmonics. Planted to scramble the regalia's wards during tomorrow's council. Subtle, meant to look like a glitch, erode trust in the throne's vigilance. His eyes met hers, steady, no boast. Neutralized now. Your tech's elegant, just needed a pattern tweak. Alari's scales prickled with a mix of alarm and awe. Humans multitasked like breathing, scanning crowds, decoding threats, all while playing the diplomat. Her palace scouts would have swept for hours. How did you spot it so fast? Practice, he said with a half shrug, humble as if discussing weather. Shadows cast patterns. This one didn't match. He deactivated the device with a twist, its glow dying. From off-world Krellin make, I'd wager. Vesh's contacts? Her tail lashed once. Political knives were her world, but this, a consort unveiling sabotage mid-revelry, without a ripple. Palace scouts, she called sharply, summoning Captain Lyra from the vault's edge. The guardswoman approached, crest low in deference. Titan perimeter sweeps. Double vents. Access grates. No one leaves without scan. Lyra saluted, eyes flicking to Julian with fresh wariness. At once, Highness. Shall I log the device? Not yet, Alari said. Confidential. Lyra departed, and Alari turned to Julian, voice dropping. Assess palace vulnerabilities. Full sweep. Entrances. Shadows. Blind spots. If Vesh moves again. He nodded, already mapping mentally. She saw it in his gaze, connecting hall layouts to service tunnels she'd studied rote, blind spots at east galleries, service ducts under the dais. Human eyes catch motion differently. I'll check tonight. But we front it together tomorrow. United, or they pick at seams. She studied him, broad-shouldered, unadorned by Sistari finery, yet radiating quiet command. No arrogance, just capability, woven into his bones. Her sheltered training felt brittle beside it. United, then, the court watches for weakness. We give them strength. As revelers swirled, Vesh caught her eye across the vault, his smile a blade's edge, but with Julian's warmth at her side, protective, not possessive. Alari felt the shift deepen. Partnership, unforeseen, the Empire's webs tightened, but now two minds wove them. They moved back into the light, hands brushing in ritual clasp for the delegates' benefit. Whispers followed. The human had spoken vows of protection, now whispers of his gaze, sharp as a scout's. Lyra returned briefly, murmuring, "Perimeter locked, Highness." "And the consort's device?" Scouts missed it clean. "Note it for training," Alari said, suppressing a frill flutter. Julian overheard, offering Lyra a nod. "Your filaments are solid. Taught me a new harmonic today." The guardswoman's crest lifted fractionally, surprise etching her scales. Mutual, then. Not conquest. Later, as the assembly thinned, Alari led Julian to a side balcony overlooking the palace spires, starfields beyond. Cool night winds carried nectar scents. "You cited protective mission earlier," she said, turning to him. "More than alliance words?" His expression softened, human eyes crinkling. "More. Humans bond packs fast, yours included now, but yeah, duty first. Vulnerabilities, your eastern wing has echo vents, sound masks intruders. I'll sketch fixes by dawn." She laughed softly, a spirited trill escaping despite the shadows. "You juggle threats like chalices. My forms are dance. Yours." Survival poetry. His humility disarmed her. No gloating, just shared ground. Her flaw, the sheltered crown's weight, lightened in his orbit. Vesh's faction departed in a rustle of cloaks, but Alari's resolve hardened. Tomorrow's court demanded a front unbreakable. With Julian, elite shadow unveiled, she'd forge it. The dynasty endured not alone but entwined. In the vault's dying glow as final servants bowed out, she felt eyes upon them still. Broadcast echoes, noble spies. Discord's seeds sprouted, but roots met resistance now. Human resilience, Sestari will. Collaborative fire. The palace held its breath for dawn. Alari's fingers brushed the silken petals of the imperial dusk blossom, its violet glow pulsing in the garden's morning mist. Tradition demanded she claim the first bloom after dawn's vault ceiling rite, a symbol of renewal for the air. The flower's nectar shimmered invitingly on her skin, but as she lifted it to her lips for the ritual taste, a sharp, acrid burn seared her throat. Her vision blurred, limbs turning leaden. Poison. From the shadowed arbor, a cloaked figure lunged, Lord Vesh's retainer, his dagger glinting with the same toxin residue. Alari staggered back, her crest flaring crimson in alarm, but her ceremonial silks tangled her feet. The gardens, filled with early courtiers for the rite, erupted in gasps, frozen in protocol's grip. Julian moved like liquid shadow. One hand clamped her wrist, yanking it away from her mouth before the nectar could fully coat her tongue. With the other, he snatched a vial from his diplomatic sash, neutralizer foam, deployed in a hiss that coated her lips and the assassin's exposed skin. The burn eased instantly, clarity flooding back as the foam bound the neurotoxin. The retainer pivoted, dagger thrusting low for her abdomen. Julian twisted Alari behind him in a fluid spin, his body a barrier. He didn't draw a weapon. Instead, his elbow snapped up in a precise arc, cracking the assailant's wrist with surgical force, bones grinding audibly. The dagger clattered free. As the attacker recoiled, Julian's knee drove into his midsection, folding him double, then a palm strike to the temple dropped him limp to the dew-slick moss. The whole exchange lasted 3 heartbeats. Alari blinked, her scales shifting from panicked scarlet to stunned azure. Courtiers murmured, crests flickering in shock. Julian knelt briefly, checking the assailant's pulse. Alive, subdued, then rose, his expression calm, almost apologetic. He's secure, medics inbound. No flourish, no boast, just efficiency. Her guards swarmed then, binding the fallen man, but their eyes lingered on Julian, the ceremonial spouse, with crests half raised in wary yellow. A diplomatic attaché shouldn't disarm a trained killer barehanded. Alari straightened her robes, pulse steadying. How did you know the foam would work?" "Standard field precaution," Julian said, wiping residue from his hands on a leaf. His dark eyes met hers steadily. No trace of triumph. "Human medkits cover a broad spectrum. Your empire's toxins are in the databases." She nodded, mind racing. The dusk blossom's poison was rare, court exclusive. Vesh's faction testing boundaries already? But Julian's response, precise, adaptive, shook her more. Sheltered as she was, she'd seen Sestari duelists train for cycles to match that economy of motion. "Teach me," she said, voice firm amid the gathering nobles. "Hands-on, self-defense, field tactics, no more relying on ceremony." Julian paused, glancing at the tightening circle of onlookers. "Princess, the council?" "Now," she cut in, her spirited edge sharpening. "In private. If I'm to rule through threats like this, I need more than forms." He inclined his head, humble deference masking the steel beneath. "As you wish." By midday, the high chamber buzzed with outrage. Lord Vesh stood at the faction podium, his emerald scales gleaming under the dome's light orbs, crest arched in feigned concern. An outsider neutralizes a Sistari assailant. Commendable, perhaps, but proof of loyalty? We demand it. This human's skills reek of hidden agendas. Scrutinize the marriage? Test his allegiance before he poisons our dynasty from within. Murmurs rippled, crests pulsing amber agreement. Alari sat the heir's throne, Julian at her side in attaché robes, face impassive. Vesh exploited the attempt masterfully, turning defense into suspicion. Her own guard's reports already circulated. Julian's strikes were elite grade, not diplomatic parlor tricks. The attack was Vesh's retainer, Alari countered, her voice carrying cool authority. "Interrogate him." "Julian saved my life, your heir's life." Vesh's frill twitched. Convenient, perhaps staged. "Humanity's records show versatility. We require oaths, demonstrations, public ones." Julian leaned forward slightly. "Name the tests, Lord." "Transparency builds alliances." Alari shot him a sidelong glance. His calm under fire steadied her. Vesh smirked, conceding for now, but the faction's demand hung. Increased scrutiny. Spies would multiply. Good. Let them watch the surface. That evening, in the secluded Western Wing's training vault, stone walls etched with ancient dual glyphs, air thick with incense, Alari shed her outer robes for fitted sparring leathers. No courtiers, no broadcasts. Just Julian, in simple tunic and pants, uncoiling a set of padded batons. "Stance first," he said, demonstrating. "Feet shoulder width, knees soft, weight balanced forward, not rigid like your forms. Human tactics emphasize flow. Adapt to terrain, opponent, watch." He shifted seamlessly, baton blurring in a defensive arc, then a counter that exploited imaginary openings. Alari mirrored him. Her lithe frame, taller than his by a head, scales shimmering pearl under the glow globes, adapting quicker than expected. She'd mastered ceremonial katas young, but this felt alive, practical. Like this? She flowed into the stance, pivoting as he circled. Close, loosen the hips. His hand brushed her side lightly, correcting warmth through leather, professional yet sparking unbidden awareness. Drill, shadow opponent, strike, evade, counter, multitask, call out threats as you move. She began. Batons whipping air. Intruder left flank. Evade, strike, poison dispersal high. Counter low. Sweat beaded her brow, crest flaring teal with focus. Sistari endurance flagged after cycles of precision work. But Julian paced her effortlessly, calling corrections while demonstrating counters himself, juggling supervision and his own forms without a hitch. "You're a natural," he noted after 10 repetitions. "No flattery, just fact. Your balance is superior. Evolutionary gift from your gravity wells?" She paused, breathing steady. "Flattery from a human? Rare." A shared half-smile, lightening the intensity. His humility disarmed more than his strikes. Not flattery, observation. He handed her water from his kit, infused with electrolytes her med scans had noted. Thoughtful. "Aliens like your kin excel in sustained precision. Humans, we improvise across variables." As he supervised her next drill, simulated ground takedown, rolling from prone to strike, she watched him sidelong. Pattern recognition clicked. His movements connected dueling arts she'd studied across species databases, remixed creatively. No rote mastery, novel synthesis. And that foam earlier, adaptability under pressure. Yet doubts lingered. Vesh's whispers echoed. Hidden agendas. This ceremonial spouse, concealed depths. She'd keep core sessions confidential. No logs, no aids. Test him controlled. Feign vulnerabilities. Probe reactions. Leak false intel through servants. Gauge loyalty. If he wavered. Again, Julian prompted. Baton ready. Threat from behind. Improvise. Alari spun, fainting weakness in her guard, watching his eyes. He adjusted seamlessly. countering without exploiting. Respect flickered in her chest, warming the vault's chill. Collaborative fire, indeed. But trust earned through fire. Outside, palace shadows lengthened, spies' eyes multiplying. Vesh's faction plotted deeper probes. But here, in baton clashes and shared breaths, something shifted, duty's veil thinning to partnership's edge. Alari struck true. Julian parried with a nod of approval. Dawn's breath had held. Now, storms brewed. Alari's pulse thrummed as she sheathed her training baton. Julian's approving nod lingering like a spark in her chest. They stepped from the dawn-lit courtyard into the palace corridors, guards falling in behind with crisp salutes. Then the world plunged into black. Lights died in a cascade, emergency lumens flickering to life with a sickly red glow. Alarms wailed, a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through the marble floors. Shouts erupted from distant halls, power grids sabotaged, militants breaching the outer governor's wing. Alari's frills flared in alarm, her crest ridges hardening. Julian. He was already moving, hand on her arm guiding her toward the command nexus. Stay close, princess. This isn't random. His voice cut through the chaos, calm as polished steel. Guards clustered around them, antennae twitching, but Julian barked orders before they could scatter. U4, seal the heir's quarters and east wing. Triangulate the breach from auxiliary feeds. The rest, with me to the governor's holdout. The Sistari guards hesitated a split second, their multifaceted eyes darting to Alari for confirmation. She nodded sharply. Do it. Protect the governor at all costs. Julian didn't wait. He pulled a compact holopad from his diplomatic vest, sleek human tech, jury-rigged with Sistari overrides, and synced it mid-stride. Data streams bloomed in holographic overlays only he could parse at that speed, his fingers dancing across inputs while he scanned corridors. Militants are tunneling from the sublevels, 20 confirmed, armed with plasma cutters and stunners, governors pinned in his antechamber. Breach point here. He jabbed the holo, directing 2 squads left and right without breaking pace. Flank and contain. No heroics. Funnel them to the atrium. Alari matched his stride, her ceremonial blade humming at her side. She'd drilled palace defense 1,000 times, but this felt alive, jagged. Julian multitasked like it was breath, relaying guard positions via comms, plotting fallback routes, even noting a flickering panel that might be a secondary sabotage vector. Princess, your override code for the armory, now. She rattled it off, and he patched it through, unlocking heavy weapons caches en route. They hit the Nexus stairs as the first plasma bursts echoed up. Julian vaulted a barricade, drawing a compact pulse pistol, human make, unpermitted for diplomats, and dropped 2 militants with precise knee shots before they could raise their cutters. Strike team advance. Suppress and disarm. Lethal only if they reach the governor. Alari's guards surged forward under his lead, their usual rigid formations fracturing into fluid sweeps he'd just improvised. One guard, crest low in confusion, muttered, "How does he see the patterns so fast? Our sims take cycles to compute." She had no answer, only the sight of Julian weaving through smoke, calling targets like he'd mapped the palace in his sleep. Endurance poured from him. No heaving vents, no faltering grip after the dawn sortie. He rallied a faltering squad mid-firefight, turning a rout into a pincer that caged the militants in under 2 minutes. The governor emerged unscathed, shell-shocked but alive. By the time power stuttered back, Julian's override cycling redundance, the crisis ebbed. Guards stared at him, frills quivering in reluctant awe. "Attaché Reyes," the captain rasped. "That was unorthodox." Effective. Julian holstered his weapon, wiping soot from his brow with a humble shrug. "Just connecting the dots. Good work, everyone." His eyes met Alari's, a flicker of shared relief, and something deeper, unspoken. But as they returned to her chambers, doubt coiled in her gut. Who was this human, really? Diplomat or something forged in sharper fires? Discreetly, she told her most trusted archivist later that cycle. In the dim vaults beneath the palace. Cross-reference attaché, Julian Reyes Galactic Alliance records. Every posting, every commendation. No ripples to the council. The archivist's mandibles clicked nervously. "Highness, such searches risk. Now." Her voice brooked no delay. Hours later, the data arrived encrypted on her private terminal. Alari scrolled alone. Heart crest rising. Standard diplomatic logs, trade negotiations, cultural liaisons, then anomalies, gaps, a consulting stint on a fringe world during a cartel uprising, unlogged casualties plummeting after his arrival, redacted service entries from a human military enclave, flagged strategic advisory, whispers of elite ops, shadow insertions, high-value extractions, no proof. But the void screamed truth. Her frills trembled. Julian wasn't just competent. He was lethal. Hidden. Why conceal it in her court? Before she could confront him, the council summons blared, Lord Vesh, petitioning emergency session. She strode into the grand chamber at dusk, Julian at her flank per protocol, facing the tiered dais where nobles perched like jeweled insects. Vesh rose, his iridescent shell gleaming under the restored lights, voice oily with feigned concern. Esteemed council, the sabotage exposes fatal flaws in our security. This human attaché, Reyes commands our guards like a warlord, wielding unvetted weapons. I petition revocation of his status and dissolution of the betrothal. He undermines his starry sovereignty. Murmurs rippled, frills fluttering agreement from his faction. Alari's crest hardened, but Julian stood silent, expression neutral. She stepped forward, voice ringing. Lord Vesh mistakes vigilance for threat. Attaché Reyes saved the governor, saved us. Tonight, you question his status, I enforce mine. This union is my decree, alliance's seal. Challenge it, and you challenge the heir. Vesh's mandibles parted in shock. Highness, his records. Sealed by right, she cut in, pulse racing. It was her first unscripted stand framing defense as dominion. The chamber hushed, even neutrals shifted, eyes on her newfound steel. Session adjourned in deadlock, but division deepened. Vesh's faction glaring daggers. Dawn broke again too soon, mist cloaking the outer training grounds. Alari gripped her blade, Julian opposite in the sparring circle. Guards watched from afar, whispers of the knight's feet still buzzing. Their forms solid, Julian said, circling, but formations too static. Sistari doctrine favors symmetry. Humans learned asymmetry wins outnumbered fights. She lunged, testing. Show me, he parried, then dismantled her guard with a pivot. Shift weight here, feint high, strike low. Now, offensive lead, dictate the flow. They reset, and for the first time, Alari took point. She adapted his correction mid-flow, weaving a mock advance that forced Julian back 2 steps, him grinning approval. Her strikes landed true, baton humming against his blocks. No rote drill. She improvised, blending her ceremonial grace with his fluid chaos. Sweat beaded her shell. He showed none, enduring the extended bout without flagging. The guard murmured, she moves like him now, impossible adaptation. As they broke, Alari's breath steadied on his. Those records, the gaps. Who are you, Julian? His eyes held hers, humble yet steady. The man who'll stand with you, whatever storms brew. Outside, palace shadows lengthened further, Vesh's spies multiplying. Sabotage scars lingered, records ghosts haunting. The court teetered, diplomat or warrior. Alari's choice would decide. Alari's comm implant screamed to life, a piercing wail that shattered the council chamber's tense hush. Hollow displays flickered red across the table, legionary dreadnoughts breaching the outer perimeter, their signatures syncing with encrypted bursts from within the palace walls. Invasion inbound, she barked, slamming her palm on the override panel. Vesh's traitors are lighting beacons now. Seal the gates. Guards surged into motion around her, but chaos clawed at the edges. Courtiers scrambling, Vesh's faction feigning shock while their eyes darted to hidden exits. Alari's heart hammered, her training kicking in. Ceremonial forms meant for display, now thrust into blood-real stakes. She locked eyes with Julian across the chamber, his human frame steady amid the panic, fingers already dancing over a portable tack pad. He met her gaze, calm as deep space. Alari, your protocols hold. I've got the grid. No hesitation, no plea for permission. Julian Reyes, her diplomatic shadow, husband in name only until this moment, tapped a sequence that bloomed into a city-wide defense overlay, revealing now, I'm not just your attaché, special forces strategist, embedded ops. We counter with layered fire, palace first, then flanks. The chamber froze. Chief Minister Thalor, Her grizzled advisor gaped at the hollow. Julian's overlay pulsing with predictive vectors, accounting for wind shears, troop fatigue, even the legionaries' plasma bloom delays. Human, you orchestrated the shadow runs? The ones that ghosted our borders undetected? Thalor's crest flared in shock, a Sistari tell of disbelief. Julian didn't preen, learned it in the field. Your Empire's tech is flawless. We just sync it smarter. He multitasked seamlessly, relaying orders to outer batteries via burst link, while patching into palace security cams, spotting 3 infiltrators in the east wing. His voice stayed even, juggling feeds as if breathing. Alari, your contingency 3. Reroute loyalists to the vault choke points. I'll handle the fleet sync. She nodded, pride surging past the fear. This human, once a polite enigma in Alliance robes, now the axis of their survival. Alari seized her command nexus, her fingers flying over protocols she'd co-designed in late-night sessions with him. Endless drills where he'd taught her to think beyond forms, to anticipate the enemy's feint within feint. Second Legion to the breach wall, arc the railguns on my mark. Explosions rocked the palace foundations as legionary drop pods slammed the outer plazas, Vesh's conspirators rising from hidden panels with vibroblades gleaming. Alari felt the structure shudder, dust sifting from the vaulted ceiling. But she held her post. Through the nexus link she saw Julian's work unfold, human ingenuity weaving her troops' precision into chaos. He predicted a pincer from the south by cross-referencing weather data with enemy thrust patterns, something no Sistari tactician had layered before. "Mark!" she called. Railgun volleys lanced out, shredding the lead pods mid-descent. Cheers erupted from the comms. But Alari pressed on, adapting Julian's lesson. Read the flow, not just the strike. Vesh's men breached a side corridor. She vectored a squad of her personal guard, their ceremonial spears now lethal in tight quarters. Julian was everywhere without moving, coordinating drone swarms to jam infiltrator signals, then flipping to manual overrides for jammed turrets. His endurance unflagging as hours blurred. Sweat beaded his brow, but his hands never slowed, multitasking overrides, morale pings, and predictive sims. A Sistari captain's voice crackled in awe. The human? He's holding 3 fronts alone. Our best strategists burn out after one. Alari stole a glance. Julian's eyes flicked between screens, connecting dots across domains, fleet vectors to ground sabotage. Even Vesh's faction broadcasts for psyop tells. Her chest tightened, not just with the thrill of command, but something deeper. He'd seen her potential when the court dismissed her as sheltered, drilled her through failures until she owned the tactics. Now, they moved as one. The tide turned at dawn's edge. Legionary heavies faltered under crisscross fire. Internal traitors routed as Alari's troops pinched them in the vaults. Vesh himself fled into custody, his spies netted by Julian's preemptive sweeps. The palace stood scarred but unbowed, the city beyond echoing with victory klaxons. In the Grand Assembly Hall, smoke still curling from breached vents, Chief Minister Thalor called the Emergency Council to order. Alari stood at the dais, Julian at her side, his tack pad stowed but presence radiating quiet command. Thalor projected the battle logs, Julian's overlays superimposed on the chaos, turning rout into triumph. "Behold," Thalor boomed, his crest fully extended in rare fervor. "The human, Julian Reyes, not mere diplomat but elite architect of our defense. He coordinated across scales no Sistari mind has juggled. Fleet, ground, intrigue, in endurance that defies our physiologies." Murmurs rippled. Even Vesh's allies shifted uneasily. "By these deeds I move for decrees, validate his marriage bond, affirm his strategic role." Objections? None rose. The council affirmed unanimously, factional whispers dying under the weight of hollows, showing human pattern recognition saving their lives, linking a saboteur's gate to fleet timings, preempting the kill shot. Alari stepped forward, her voice carrying to every crest and calm. "Julian Reyes is no ceremonial spouse. He is my partner, proven in fire." She turned to him, clasping his hand in the ancient Sistari grip, forearm to forearm, a vow beyond words. Warmth bloomed there, his calloused skin against her scales, the first spark of something personal amid the duty. "Together we initiate measures. Full rights beside the heir, counsel in all matters." The assembly erupted in approval, but Alari's focus narrowed to him. Julian's eyes held hers, humble gratitude softening the strategist's edge. "We did it, Alari. Your protocols made it stick. Council dispersed. They retreated to the heir's sanctum, the city's glow filtering through reinforced panes. Adrenaline ebbed, leaving bone-deep fatigue for her, yet Julian poured stim draughts with steady hands, already sketching reforms on a fresh pad. We can't stop at survival, she said, sinking into the strategy couch beside him. Her hand lingered on his, the touch electric now. Friendship forged in crisis, blooming toward more. Vesh exposed the fractures. Succession protocols are archaic. They breed these plots. He nodded, leaning close, his scent of sweat and resolve oddly comforting. Reform them. Present as a unified couple, Sistari precision with human adaptability. Stable future. No more shadows. Alari smiled, the weight lifting. Born to rule. Yes. But he'd taught her to lead. Shoulder to shoulder. Partners then. In throne and beyond. Outside, the Empire steadied, their bond the new keystone.